Blog Talk Radio.
I'm back. I know that everybody has been pestering me, or at least so I've heard recently, about how I haven't been on the radio, but I am indeed live. Well, not really well, but I am live today and here on Blog Talk Radio. So a couple quick things, because I don't want to leave our very esteemed guest, holding for too long. A couple quick things. To those of you that might have gone onto the Art is Alive magazine website, you might have noticed that I posted an update relative to the most recent issue. There's been a few issues, no pun intended, sadly, and a few staff changes, etc. So I felt compelled to send a note out. So please go ahead, any of you that are waiting to get your new issue, go check www.theartisalivemagazine.com. In case any of you missed it, the time for submissions is now officially over. We are officially judging all of the submissions for Art is Alive Film Festival, which is still taking place live in August. So please stay tuned in terms of which location we pick. Currently, we are looking at Texas, we are looking at California, Nevada, and I think there's one more. Frankly, I can't even remember anymore. So stay tuned. artisalivefilmfestival.weebly.com is the place to check for updates relative to the festival. And in case any of you might have forgotten, of course, we are starting to do the live screening events. Our pop-up drive-ins will be starting soon, along with our stage show. So if you want any information sent to you directly, my email again is cin4251@gmail.com. Otherwise, I can be reached on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it. I'm basically on it. So don't forget about that. And remember, today is one of 3 different shows this week. Today, of course, I am hosting Katie. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, author Mark Cavella is going to be on the show. And the 13th, we have a surprise guest. And I say surprise because, frankly, I don't even know who the hell is coming on the show. It's one of 2 different people. So please stay tuned. Today, tomorrow we have a show, and like I said, Saturday we have a show. And, of course, I should be going back to my 3-day-a-week routine with the show. It's just been crazy busy, and with summer coming and the new motorcycle, which you all saw, there's just been a lot going on. So without further ado, instead of listening to me talk, let's get Katie on the line and let's start doing our interview. Hi there, Katie. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Well, I'm so sorry. I have to apologize. For some reason, we were having some trouble connecting to the line for the first couple of minutes there. It's strange. When I try to call into the show, sometimes it's harder for me to get into my own show than it is for my guests to get into the show. So thank you so much for being patient. I really appreciate it. It's just been insane. Life has been nuts around here. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. First of all, you're beautiful.
Well, it's been nuts here, too.
You're just, oh, my gosh. You're just incredibly cute. I creeped, because I'm a journalist. That's what we do. We creep. I creeped on your Facebook page, and I creeped on other things, and I'm like, oh, my God, you're beautiful. You're a gorgeous lady. Gosh, too cute.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And then, of course, I saw the little the little Facebook picture of you and your husband, and I'm like, oh, my God, it's so cute. You are actually a lovely couple. I saw the black and white photo, and my honey and I have a black and white photo that's somewhat similar, and I was like, oh, how cute is that? So you're absolutely adorable. I always like to start with something good. So there you go.
You.
You're really cute. You're quite welcome. And you don't look like an attorney. And that's probably a good thing, because attorneys scare someone.
Well, that's a plus.
So I'm all good. Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. So I guess that's a good starting point to jump around. On this show, we jump around and we do a little bit of personal, a little bit of professional. We're going to talk about the business, of course, and what you do for a living. But I want to always start off with the base, which is everybody has a home and a family. So I know that you were in Illinois, and as I understand it, Illinois has been one of the tougher states to get open. So please start off by letting us know how you and your family are doing. How is the state doing in terms of opening and things like that?
Yeah, so we're actually in downtown Chicago. So Chicago's been a little bit delayed from the rest of the state, which is fine.
Sure.
We've had a lot of protesting. There's been definitely peaceful protesting, but unfortunately there's also been a lot of riots and a lot of looting, which has kind of delayed, some restaurants and stores and businesses from opening, which can be kind of, it's kind of sad because, everybody's dealt with COVID and having their businesses be closed or limited, and everybody was really looking forward, to reopening. And, obviously no one has been disagreeing, with the protests or anything, but the looting and, just the unnecessary, rioting and everything like that kind of sets everybody back. They've already had to shut their businesses down, and now, and now they're looted and they still can't open. So some things are getting, back to normal. I was at a doctor's appointment this morning and in the loop, and I did see, several people that were out and about going to work. So it seems that, things are coming around slowly but surely, which is good. My husband and I have been stuck home. I'm actually 6 months pregnant, so that's been an interesting time well,
yes.
which is, it's nice to be home and be pregnant, but, I also miss, seeing my friends and seeing, my family, and, so that has kind of been hard too. We're getting by.
I imagine. Oh, sure, I can imagine. And plus, too, of course, first of all, you're pregnant. I don't know about you there in Illinois, but it's 80 right now. I'm, like, dying. I ran out of the house for 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm going to drop on the floor and die. I remember being 6 months pregnant, so I can imagine, oh, my God, girl, are you up on your feet in air conditioning? Please say yes.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Jesus, for that one. Well, and, a lot of us take for granted, the fact that we can walk into a hospital or walk to a doctor's office. The whole demographic has changed. So, of course, as a pregnant woman, are there restrictions in terms of your care? Because I know some husbands were like, oh, my God, we're having a baby, and who knows if I can be with her, et cetera. You know what I mean? So have you had those sort of challenges to look at yet?
Yeah, so when I went for my 20-week ultrasound, my husband couldn't come with me. My doctor told me today he probably can't come with me to the other ultrasound. It sucks because it's our first baby, and, he's, obviously, very involved in everything, and he wants to see the ultrasound. He wants to hear the baby's heartbeat, and, they're letting us FaceTime, but I know it's not the same. At least, he was able to go to our 12-week ultrasound and even, a couple ultrasounds, that we've had like early on. So that's been nice, but yeah, he hasn't been able to go to anything since March. But I know the hospitals here, they are allowing partners, to be there for the delivery, thankfully. So it's been different. And I mean, definitely like at the doctor's office, they've cut certain things. Like I was supposed to have an 18-week visit and they cut that, and I just had to go in, 16 weeks, and they cut that. I had to go in at 20 weeks instead. So they kind of adjusted, a little bit to minimize the number of people that are in the office and things like that. So.
Gotcha. Understood, definitely. Well, I'm glad that you're comfortable. Hopefully, with any luck at all, by the time you get to the point where you're having your little bambino, of course, that you'll be all well and everything will be back to normal. Interesting question, because I know, of course, what you do for a living. To those of you that are first listening in that do not know, you are what they call a litigation defense attorney. So I want to ask you, because a lot of conversations have been going on, as you know, again, with this pandemic and riots and everything happening. I'm going to guess that attorneys, there's a greater need for attorneys. I see citizens that are suing governors, et cetera, et cetera. Have you seen a change in your business and the chemistry and makeup of it, and how are you addressing the current needs of the situation in terms of your firm?
So where we've seen it is basically loss of business. So I do insurance defense. Granted, I do more litigation, but we also do insurance coverage. So obviously a lot of businesses within the U.S. are making like loss of income, loss of business claims with their insurance companies. So there's been a lot of matters that have been going on with that. The insurance companies asking for coverage opinions, whether coverage would apply under such a scenario with, a pandemic. So we've seen a lot of spikes in coverage issues or coverage claims. In terms of litigation-wise, it's still coming in, but not more, not less. A lot of the courts, at least in Illinois, Cook County is the second largest jurisdiction in the U.S., and that's, all our courts have been closed other than for emergency purposes. So a lot of things in terms of litigation have been delayed. For litigation, we do a lot of depositions. So a lot of depositions have been taking place via Zoom, which can be nice, but it can also be difficult to present a witness for deposition, online. And, sometimes we're using hundreds of pages of exhibits, and to share the screen and go through the exhibits and make sure everybody's on the same page, it takes a little while longer, but a lot of people, but we're coping with it. We're dealing with it. It's a new normal, right, as everybody's been saying.
Well,
So.
yeah, and some of us like that term and some of us don't, and everybody's definition of
Right.
normal is obviously a little bit different there as far as that goes. And, of course, like I said, you don't look like the typical attorney because, of course, I just watched a movie last night where I was like, oh, look, da-da-da-da-da. So, I'm curious to ask what you love about the law so much because from all the different attorneys I know, the one thing that I do notice is a lot of them will say, well, people think that our job is boring, but when you love it, it's not so mundane. So tell me a bit about why you picked this particular practice and more so why you love doing what you do.
Sure. So I don't really like doing the same thing day in and day out. So being a litigation lawyer, I get to have different types of cases. I'm not stuck behind a desk, all day, every day. I get to go to court. I get to go to depositions. I get to be on trial. A lot of different things. And again, each case that I have, there may be similarities, but every case is different. So every case that comes in, there's something different that needs to be done. I may be doing research one day, I may be doing depositions the next day. So I just like having a variety of different types of cases. And I'm also just I know that there are some people out there that like to be, they like to go to an office, they like to be, at a desk for 8 hours a day, and then they go home. I don't want to be behind a desk. I want to be doing something. I want to be going to depositions. I want to be going to court. I want to be doing something that, not that people behind the desk aren't keeping busy, but I like to stay active and do have a variety of different things to do with my job. So that's what I really like about it.
Very, very nice. Well, and folks, just so you know, she must be really good at what she did because according to your profile, I see that you have won a total of 11 awards doing what you do for a living. That's incredible. You topped me, well over topped me, so bravo to you. Well, and of course, I'm going to guess that I'm curious to ask about, because I know, of course, obviously confidentiality and such, but I bet you get a very diverse amount of clientele, and over a period of time, you never know what you're going to get. Or you basically deal with the same demographic. And I ask only because of the fact that I'm always running into people that need a lawyer. So if they're listening in today, I'd like to know what kind of people that you deal with so that we can send some business your way.
So I do anything from so I do defense work, but I can also take plaintiff's work. So I do a lot of personal injury cases. So if somebody's injured in an auto accident, if they're injured in a slip and fall, I do a lot of construction accidents, defense mainly, but can also do plaintiff's work. I do a lot of construction defect work. So primarily it's personal injury defense work, but also breach of contract, construction defect. Those are the cases that I tend to work on.
Gotcha. And it sounds like you work so much that I'm shocked that you're pregnant. I mean, I'm not quite sure when you're fitting the baby in here. I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, oh, my God, I thought I was insanely busy. So the question is, on the other side of the fence, of course, you have a dog and a husband, which I saw. So, of course, we'll start with your husband. Does he work in a similar field? Because I tend to see that, well, my honey and I are in the same field, but do you both work in the same field?
No, we don't. I had a little rule that I wouldn't date any other lawyer.
It's not a bad idea, actually. That's lovely.
Yeah.
And, of course, clearly, and we'll get into the business side of things because, of course, you're handling a lot. You're working at your office. You're obviously working on building your new company that you have, which we're going to be talking about. So it's a lot that's going on. So, usually our partners balance us a little bit. So how does he help you to manage this whole crazy, chaotic sort of thing, because you do need to maintain a balance between the woman and the working woman, so to speak.
Yeah, so I tend to be very, I don't want to say hyper, but I mean, I do have I'm always go, 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 go. And my husband will just be relax, calm down, one thing at a time. You don't have to try and do 10 things at once, which I'm always trying to do. I know I get that from my own mother. But I'm always trying to, get things done and do things right away. Where he's you have time, just sit for a minute, relax, and just, make a list, check it off, and just stay calm.
Oh, my goodness gracious. And, of course, I want to ask you about this because I know you're in Chicago now, but you're formerly from Bloomington, Illinois. And I have never been there. In fact, I've heard of it, but I've never even stopped there once. So tell us a bit about what's special, if anything, about the area, because Bloomington is a suburban area. Is that correct? Or I know very little.
Well, I'm from Bloomingdale, not Bloomington. Bloomington is in central Illinois.
Right.
So I'm from Bloomingdale, which is
Gotcha.
like a western suburb of Chicago. Yeah, so it's a western suburb of Chicago. It's about 35 minutes west of the city. It's very suburban, house after house after house, yard after yard after yard. It's definitely more peaceful, than the city. Mm-hmm. But I actually, I went to college in the city at Loyola in Chicago. I went to law school in Chicago at Chicago Kent. Mm-hmm. And so I've been in Chicago I've been living in the city since 1997. So now I think I'm at the point where I've lived in the city longer than it was that I lived in Bloomingdale. But Bloomingdale will always have, my parents are still there. I grew up there. Like my schools are still there. So it's always nice to go back, and to where your roots are from.
Oh, 150% actually. In researching, I know, of course, you attended the Chicago Kent College of Law, and so you seem like a typical candidate, and forgive me if I'm mistaken. When somebody is award-winning and somebody has a huge level of expertise and engagement in their field, oftentimes they're asked to teach, lecture, etc. Have you ever gone back to the law schools and spoken to the youth or those that are in college, or would you ever entertain that idea?
So I definitely would entertain the idea. There was one year that I did serve as a mentor to a female law student. I don't know if that program is still going on at Kent or not, but that was something that I definitely, volunteered to do and definitely would do again if they still had the program, for sure.
Ah, nice. Very, very nice. Well, and two, nowadays, clearly we're a little straddled because education, my kids are on digital learning, so I can imagine with the college scenario, like they could use all the help they can get at this point. Now, question for you. You were named one of the top 50 startups to watch in 2020 by Built in Chicago, which is a huge accolade. It's always impressive when a startup gets recognized by another foundation. But for you, most importantly, there's more of a personal connection, which we'll get into why you started it. Now, the question is, how did you end up getting on their radar? I don't know a lot about Built in Chicago, but I know they come highly recommended. Mm-hmm. So what was the defining thing? Did they tell you what made them select you?
So we're part of 1871 Chicago. So 1871 was founded, I think almost 11 years ago. And it's basically like the startup hub in Chicago where companies come together. You can get mentorship. So we're part of 1871, and we applied to a program called WeSim. And WeSim selects 10 female companies to be part of their program. And it's companies with female founders. And basically it's mentorship going through their program and, working with 10 other companies to build up your startup company. So Built in Chicago, so Built in, has a relationship with 1871. So 1871 announces, or WeSim announces as well, what companies are part of the program. So then Built in will actually look at, what companies are participating in 1871 or what companies are participating in WeSim or any of the other programs that 1871 may have.
Understood. Gotcha. Yeah, because that was pretty impressive. I'm like, my goodness gracious. And, I'm an old lady. I'm almost 51 years old, and I'm like, I know that you're not my age. And I'm thinking to myself, she is highly, highly, highly up there for a girl who is a little bit younger than I am. Kudos. That's another great achievement, of course. Truly it is. I mean, and the pregnancy and the whole thing. The name of the company that you started is called EmBorrow. Okay, so we want to start at the beginning when we talk about this. I know that, and help me out with this, of course, because some of these terminologies and some of these things I don't understand as a woman, and I'd like to. So in the beginning, when you were looking at exploring setting this up, you have expressed and said multiple times that you experienced what we call a low egg reserve. So to those women who have never experienced that, tell your audience, what does that mean specifically, and why is that an issue that needs to be dealt with at your age?
Yeah, sure. So when I was 35, I decided to do some fertility testing. And what they do is they look at your egg reserve. So they're looking to see how many eggs you have left, basically. So how they do that is they take your blood work on a specific day during your cycle, and they also do an ultrasound on a specific day during your cycle. So what they're looking for on the ultrasound is they're looking at your ovaries, and they're looking for follicles that are on your ovaries, and they're counting those follicles. So counting those follicles is basically going to tell you or tell the doctor what your egg reserve is in comparison and using the blood work that you're doing as well. So when I went in at the age of 35, they would have said a normal 35-year-old would have had maybe around 15 or more follicles combined on both of their ovaries. Well, I only had 9 or 10. Basically what they told me was that for a 35-year-old, I had low egg reserve, that they would have expected to see more follicles on my ovaries during that time during my cycle, and they did not. So that's how I got the diagnosis.
Okay. Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
And I understand you. Oh, it does. I mean, you've broken it down nicely because oftentimes, even though I'm a woman and I have the same parts, of course, it's a little bit different for every person. So, we want to identify terms and make sure people understand. Now, obviously, after that, you made the choice to do 3 rounds of fertility treatment. So most people oftentimes will hear about fertility treatments and they'll talk about the anguish and all the difficult parts that come along with having to take fertility treatment. But the one thing that I want to talk about is, for you, there's a physical aspect to it, but I can imagine there's a mental aspect to the fertility treatment, and I'd like to talk about that part. I don't think oftentimes everybody gets that there's a physical side to this in order to get pregnant and to do fertility and anything relative. But when we look at the psychological aspect of this, how did you handle that? Because I imagine this is extremely overwhelming, very ominous at times, very scary. So how did you deal with all that?
Yeah, so when I first ended up getting the test, I remember getting the results back, and my levels, my count wasn't good. And at the time, I wasn't married, but I always knew I wanted to have kids. So I remember crying to my parents. I was just really, upset, and and they weren't telling me that it was really bad, but just to hear that I wasn't in the range where I should be, and that my egg reserve was low, and that I may have difficulty conceiving in the future, just as a woman, and a woman who wants her own children, it just, it hurts. So I know that I cried, and, I know that I questioned, did I wait too long? Did I spend too much time, going to school and focusing on my career? Should I have done things differently? So it's you question a lot of things that you maybe had done earlier in your life, and you kind of, again, I don't want to say mourn, but I mean, some women do, some women you'll see, turn to, because of their results, they turn to donor eggs, which there's nothing wrong with that. But from what I have heard from women who use donor eggs, you have to mourn the loss of your own eggs and your own, fertility, to move on with that. So there definitely is, a big psychological, component to this. And, for me, like I said, I cried to my parents, and I was just okay, I'm going to freeze my eggs because I'm not married yet. I don't know when I'm going to get married. I don't know when I'm going to be able to start trying to have, a family. And, I want to know that I did everything that I could do. I didn't want to look back and have regrets. At the time I said, I was looking back saying, did I spend too much time focused on school and focused on my job? I didn't want to get to a point where 4 years later, oh man, I really should have frozen my eggs. So I took that step, and I'm I'm going to do this, and whatever happens, happens.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's why I thought it was important to highlight that, because I think oftentimes, like I said, everything gets focused on just the physical part of things, and then sometimes it's all too easy to get away from the obvious, which is this is body, this is brain, it's the whole 9 yards. And, of course, the fertility treatment, typical fertility treatment lasted how long for you? I'm just curious, because each woman is different.
So I'm usually 12 to 14 days.
I gotcha. Got it. All right. Now, I'm guessing, and this was a guess in reading your, you do 3 different things for clients: educate, offer emotional support, and, of course, the financial side of things. My guess is that your company, in part, was birthed due to the fact that there is somewhat of a lack of education relative to fertility as a whole, whether it's paying for whether it's the options that are involved. What do you account for most women having less options available in terms of learning about all of this? Why do you think that we're kind of miseducated or lacking education about this subject?
So I don't think, I don't think a lot of women talk about it. And for me, I remember asking my gynecologist at the time, I was 31, and I had heard of a blood test from a friend who had a fertility nurse as a friend. And, I was asking my doctor, well, can I get this blood test? It's for the AMH, like you can see it. There's a couple companies that you can get an AMH test with, at your home as well. I know like some doctors won't recommend that because you're not doing the ultrasound with it. But I asked my doctor, if I could have, this test. And, her response to me was, well, what are you going to do if your levels aren't good? Are you just going to go out and meet somebody on the street and like start having a family? So, to get that response, and granted this was like 9 years ago, I think things have changed a little bit. But I don't think that there's like that open discussion that women should be having, with either their physician or their friends, or, I'm a big believer, doctors do a lot for us, don't get me wrong, but if you're seeing your primary care physician or if you're seeing your gynecologist, I think, you always go into the office, they always give you a questionnaire, or they're always asking you questions. I think one of the questions to the female should be, are you thinking about having a family someday? Or, do you see yourself having kids? Because that discussion should be, open. And if a female is, 32 and she's single and her doctor's asking her, hey, do you want to have a family someday? Well, let's, and if the answer is, well, I don't know, maybe. Okay, well, let's run some tests and see where your fertility is. Let's see where your fertility health is. So I think it needs to, obviously patients need to be their own advocates, right? Nobody's going to advocate for you better than yourself. So I think if women can get the education that, as we age, our fertility certainly does not get better. Most women know that, but some don't really think about it because we're focused on our education, we're focused on careers, and we're focused on other things. But be your own advocate, talk to your doctor, and I also think that doctors to their patients should be asking these questions as well, so we can get a conversation going, so women can find out exactly where their fertility health is, and if it's not in a good position, what can we do about it? Because there are things that can be done, such as fertility preservation or freezing your eggs.
Oh, sure, you betcha. And one of the things that I found interesting when I was getting prepared for this interview, I'd taken a look around and tried to educate myself a bit on fertility. What's interesting as a woman is some of these things I knew already, and some of these things I had no clue. Like, for instance, it's been said that sometimes if you kind of channel your inner yogi, you can boost your chances of fertility. Things like that I would have never even thought of. And I'm betting that there's a whole lot of strategies for fertility that people are really unaware of. So if a woman, let's say, for instance, she's listening today and she's like, okay, great, she's got these great ideas for fertility, et cetera. How does one educate? Is there a way for themselves for you to learn about these sorts of things outside of listening to my show, for instance, or in this case, I Googled and talked to people. But is there a great resource for women that you have out there where they can start looking at ways to improve their chances of fertility even before they hit the doctor?
Yeah, so we have some things on our website, but you can also go to, you can search. So we actually partner with in Chicago, Pulling Down the Moon. It's a holistic wellness center. So you don't have to be going through fertility treatment to go there, but they have nutritional consults because there are certain vitamins that you can be taking to help with your fertility. So they have like a nutritionist, like you can do acupuncture, you can do yoga, you can do massage. So as part of EmBorrow, we like to partner with these clinics because it's not also, just about going to a fertility clinic to get, help with, insemination or IVF or something like that. There are ways to improve your fertility, even if you're trying naturally. So we like to partner with these holistic wellness centers that can take this approach, through nutrition, through fitness. So Pulling Down the Moon is like a great resource. Again, it's based here in Chicago, but they have, their website that's up that anybody could go to and take a look and see what supplements they have. But again, there are certain vitamins that, a lot of doctors, recommend. You can even ask your gynecologist, who should possibly, know the answer to this as well. Like CoQ10 is a big fertility vitamin for women. Sometimes if your vitamin D level is too low, that can cause issues with fertility. So you can get your vitamin D checked, even through your primary care physician, and see, taking like a multivitamin even is good. Fish oil is a good one.
See, and again, like I said, I'm fascinated by this because I'm like, how I keep thinking to myself, well, I am a woman, so shouldn't I know all of this? Because I've had multiple children in my lifetime, so I just presume I know everything there is to know, obviously. But clearly I don't. I'm getting an education as we speak. The other thing in terms of offering emotional support. So some of the things that EmBorrow does in particular, can you tell us some of those things where you are instrumental in nursing the emotional needs of any individual that comes to you for help?
Yeah, so sometimes, a lot of women or couples, they're private about going through, a fertility journey. Like we already talked about the emotional aspect, right? It takes an emotional toll, and sometimes a lot of women or a lot of couples, they don't want to share that, with their friends or family, or maybe they do share it with their friends and family, but the friends or the family haven't gone through fertility treatment, so they don't really know what to say. They don't really know, other than saying I'm here for you, they don't really know what that woman or what that couple, is really going through. So at EmBorrow, we have, a group of ambassadors that are here to answer questions, to show that support. Like, we've all been through it, so we know exactly, not exactly, but we know what they're going through physically. We know what they're going through emotionally. So we're there to offer that support, to give you somebody to talk to that has been through it and that understands what you're going through. A lot of the times, unfortunately with fertility treatments, and even without fertility treatments, women have miscarriages. Like, I've had one. I've also had a chemical pregnancy. That's a really tough subject to talk about with somebody that maybe has not gone through it. So again, with EmBorrow, we're offering, we have women that are part of our company, that are ambassadors, that have gone through it and are here to listen and to answer questions and to even give advice. I've done 9 rounds of fertility treatment. So, I'm not an expert, but I consider myself pretty close. So, I'm here to answer, any questions that any of our members would have regarding the treatment as well.
Well, and you hit the nail on the head, I think, oftentimes with a lot of us, especially women, are highly emotional. At least this is what I find, so ladies, don't badger and scream at me after this interview. But I do notice that most of us are emotional by nature. And, of course, when you get pregnant, the hormones and everything else that goes on in your body naturally accelerates that. Then you have a process like going through fertility treatments or having fertility issues. That ups the ante. And I always find that, as you mentioned, you hit the nail on the head. If you feel like people can't relate to you, you feel very, very alone. And this is not an experience where you should feel by yourself, clearly. I mean, that goes without saying. So the women that you deal with, or couples, people that come to you for assistance, do you have or have you found there to be a particular age group or a particular dynamic, meaning they've had similar experience, et cetera? Tell me a bit about who your typical client is.
I mean, they're kind of all over. They're younger, as in their 20s as well, that are struggling to get pregnant. Some women have what's called PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So they don't ovulate regularly, so it's difficult for them to get pregnant naturally. So that can happen, in a younger woman. Just because a woman is in her 20s doesn't necessarily mean that she's, fertile and able to get pregnant, right away. We also have women that are, similar like to my age, that are in their 40s, that are trying for their first baby, and they have a similar diagnosis to me. They have low reserve, so they're going through, fertility treatment to try and have, their first baby. Then we have members that are in their 30s that are preserving their fertility, and I'm their cheerleader because I went through 3 rounds of egg freezing to freeze my eggs, and my husband and I are going to be using those eggs to build our family because I've had 7 failed rounds of IVF. I was able to get pregnant naturally twice. One I miscarried, and now I'm pregnant naturally with, our baby that's due in September. But after that, it took me 2 years to get here and 7 failed rounds of IVF, to get here. So I'm going to be using my frozen eggs that, I froze at the age of 36. So we have members that are going through, all different sorts of treatment, from, insemination to IVF to fertility preservation.
You being at the stage where you're at, I can imagine, do you have precautionary measures that you take, or do you pass on that knowledge as well? Because I imagine you want to keep yourself as healthy and as safe as humanly possible to make sure you and baby both are being taken care of. I presume that these precautionary measures are passed along to clients as well, and you let them know of things that they should be looking out for or warning them of certain things.
Yeah, so there's certain things, especially now with COVID going around, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of, I love to meet people in person, but now, it's just not as easy. So we use a lot of Zoom. I just talked on the phone today to a potential member who could be joining EmBorrow. So we're using a lot of, electronic methods these days. We have, a Facebook page for our members to be on and ask questions and share. During COVID, a lot of fertility clinics were closed. We're offering treatment only to, and that was really hard for a lot of women because you gear up, for IVF for months. And then in March to be told, I'm sorry, you can't proceed with your treatment. That was a whole other obstacle, for women that were going through this. Yeah. So, you do have to, be cautious, where you're going, who are you being around, in terms of, keeping yourself healthy and just being careful, because a lot of doctors don't know a lot yet about COVID and the effect that it has, on the body. There was a recent study that came out from here at Northwestern in Chicago that, some mothers who were COVID positive, the placenta was damaged, and they assumed that was from COVID. So there's new information coming out, every day about COVID, but it is, you do have to be careful.
Oh, certainly. Absolutely. So now let's say, for instance, walk me through the procedure of this, because, for instance, I think sometimes with a service like yours, how does a couple or how does a woman realize, okay, I need to give Katie a call and we need to find out what she can offer us? Meaning, at what stage should people be knocking on your door and saying, I think she can help me?
So they can knock on my door at any time. You can go to, you can email me, EmBorrow's on Instagram. You can send me a message. You can go on Facebook and send me a message. Even if a woman or a couple is thinking about egg freezing or fertility treatment, sometimes you have a lot of questions, what's involved in it? What do I have to do? I'm happy to answer any of those questions now. It's not, we're not a company where you just need to apply, for financing to ask questions. We're also here to provide education. We're also here to provide support. So if anybody has any questions, there's multiple ways to reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. If you need the assistance, with financing, our application is online, and there's 3 easy steps. We have right now, we're based in Chicago, and we're licensed to lend or to finance in Illinois and Missouri. So anybody that's within those 2 states right now can apply for financing. And again, the application is online. But in terms of, any of your listeners, if they have any questions at all about, fertility preservation or IVF or anything, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, and let's say, for instance, somebody like Cindy, which fortunately for me, I do not need to get your help, which I'm so very lucky for. Let's say I show up to your offices and I say, okay, here I am. Here's me. Here's my husband, etc. Walk you through the process because, for one, I know that you offer the installment plans, which is something I want to talk about clearly because, number one, everybody who's ever looked at the idea of fertility understands it's not a cheap process. Clearly, it's going to be, at some point, exorbitant for some people financially. And I love the fact that not only are they unsecured loans, but also there's a fast turnaround with you guys, which is crucial as well because there's some timing involved with this. So here I am. I show up and I say, okay, Katie, I need this, I need this, I need this. The process itself, meaning from showing up to getting the loan itself, to getting the support you need, typically how long does that take for the average person? I know every case is different, but I'm just trying to get a ballpark idea.
Yeah, so in terms of completing our application online, again, it's 3 easy steps. And then we ask you to provide, certain documentation for the financing for our underwriting team to review. And typically from the time that you submit the application, and if we have all of the documentation that we need, the turnaround time is we can give you an answer between 24 and 48 business hours in terms of the financing.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's incredible. That almost sounds astronomical to me, only because it's like, wow, how did she do that? I can't even get a personal loan that quick. I'm like, geez. Wow.
And that's assuming that we have all the documentation, that we have everything.
Sure.
There may be some follow-up documentations that's needed, but once we have everything, we can definitely have it. We definitely have a turnaround time between 24 and 48 business hours. And then after that,
wonderful.
Once everything is, if Cindy and her husband are approved, we will gather like a contract and we send the contract to be signed electronically. And after the contract is signed electronically, we send the funds for the treatment directly to the clinic where you're getting treatment.
Oh, that's lovely. Absolutely lovely. Well, and the other thing, too, is I find it so impressive that you very, very recently, from what I just read, I think a month ago or so, you decided to do an expansion to another state, meaning now to Missouri as well. So curious to ask, why Missouri? Why not Wisconsin? Why not somewhere else? Why the election to go there? And how far into it are you at this point in terms of, I'm gathering you're still in the early stages.
Yeah, so we're still in the early stages, but, our goal is to expand to all states within the U.S. So when you're doing consumer lending such as this, each state has its own regulations. So you have to you have to apply to have a lending license within all states. Whatever state you go to, there's not like a general lending license that we can have. We can't have an Illinois license and then just go to Wisconsin and start lending in Wisconsin. So you actually have to apply for a lending license in each state. So that's what we're working our way through now. So we have the Illinois license that we got earlier, that we got in 2019. So in Missouri, I think we got in 2020. So now, we're looking at going to Texas, to California. So those are the next 2 states that we're looking to move to. So we're also, in determining what states we're going to, we're also looking at how many cycles are being done in these states, how many treatment cycles are being done between IVF and between fertility preservation, to see, where the need is, or where the volume is for the number of cycles, like where patients are located. So we also look at that too.
Oh, nice. Well, and the thing is too, I imagine that just like with COVID, fertility changes all of the time. I mean, there's new advances, new updates, new et cetera. How do you keep yourself well informed about the changes and the necessary things in this particular realm or field of fertility to keep yourself updated so that you can be more helpful to your clients as well?
So we partner with different fertility clinics within the states. So we have fertility clinic partners that we, and we have advisors that kind of keep us, informed of any changes as well. We do our own research as well to see what's going on. So in terms of our own research and our partner clinics, we stay on top of everything that's going on within the fertility community in terms of, any new studies that have come out, any new treatments that have come out.
Mm-hmm. This is overwhelming.
That's how we're staying.
I'm just sitting here taking this all in.
It's a lot of information.
I'm just sitting here thinking, oh my God, how is she breathing? Because I know I live a lifestyle very, obviously I have a lot of things that I have my hand in business-wise, and it's hard to keep track, but I'm like, oh my God, she's pregnant, she's a lawyer, she's running this, she's having to keep this up, she's got clients with this, and it's, it's an emotional endeavor. It's a labor of love. I mean, and labors of love can be very, very, very hard on a person, emotionally and physically, etc. I commend you so much for putting so much of your heart into this, not just your body and your mind, but your actual heart, and it's paid off, and it's showing, of course. I've seen some of your interviews. I've read some of them. I know you've been on Fox 32 Chicago, WGN. I've read all these things. The real question is, from this point forward in the next year, let's say even in the next 6 months or the rest of 2020, what sort of mark do you want to make in the world as it relates to not only using your business for good, but helping your fellow woman? By the end of 2020, where do you want to be standing and saying, this is what I've accomplished?
There's really two things. The first is to educate women about their fertility health, because as we discussed early on, I don't think the education is as good as it could be. And, me focusing on my education and my career, I know a lot of women are doing that, and a lot of women, are starting to have families later in life, which is great, because look at us go. Look at us spend this time on our education and our career, and that is fantastic. But if you are thinking about having a family, let's not forget that with age, our fertility health does decline. So let's start asking questions. Let's start talking about it with our doctors. Let's start getting the information that we need to make informed decisions. I would love, every woman who is in her early 30s or late 20s who is thinking, in the future they want kids, ask for some fertility testing. Freeze your eggs. There are so many options now that are available to you, and I know that it's expensive, but we're here to help with that too. It is a big chunk of change, and that's the other thing that I want to leave my mark on, that we are here to help women and couples have children, have the family that they've dreamed of, because nobody should be turned away from wanting to preserve their fertility or wanting to have a child because they simply can't afford it. We can help you.
Gosh, listen to you. God, lady, I like you. It's just so commendable. I'm so very impressed, and I just am. I am so very impressed. I just want to ask one final question before we get to finding out or telling everyone how to get a hold of you, how to find you on social media and otherwise. My other question for you is this, of course. I don't think you mentioned it earlier, or if you do you know what the baby gender is? Do you have a name picked out? Do we have a gender yet?
We're having a boy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Were you wanting a boy, or you're just like, oh my God, I'm so happy, because I can imagine you just must be elated to be having a baby to begin with.
I really didn't care if it was a girl or a boy. I was just so happy that the baby was healthy based on testing. My husband really wanted a boy because there's a family name that has been passed down. So he really wanted a boy. So he was elated that, he was ecstatic that we were having a boy. Again, I really didn't care. I was just more happy that the baby, that we got pregnant and that, the baby's healthy. But, I am super excited to have a boy. I'm really excited. I'm an only child. I'm, obviously a girl. So I'm also excited for my dad that, he gets, a grandson. So that's really exciting too.
Oh, that's so sweet. And, of course, to those that are listening in right now, looking back, now, as we are sitting here today in June of 2020, if a woman's listening in and contemplating whether she should go forth, freeze her eggs, go through these fertility treatments, if you had to do it all over again, would you change anything? Would you have taken a different course? Anything you would have modified, or has it really worked for you, the path that you selected?
Honestly, I wish I would have froze my eggs sooner. Is the one regret that I have. I know I brought it up to my doctor, when I was 31, and I kind of, set a deadline, okay, when I'm 36, 37, if I'm still single, I'm going to freeze my eggs. I wish I would have done it sooner, because even as we age, our egg count goes down, but so does the egg quality. So even just to give an example, I froze my eggs at 36. I had 25 eggs that were frozen, which sounds like a great number, but not every egg is going to make an embryo. So out of 25 eggs, I only had 4 embryos. So it's not, it goes down. Like, I had no idea that it would, I knew I wouldn't get 25 embryos, but to go from 25 to 4, and it was because I had poor egg quality. So if there's one thing I could change, I wish I would have asked questions sooner. I wish I would have gotten more of the testing done sooner, and maybe have frozen my eggs a little bit sooner when I was a little bit younger.
Gotcha.
And that's why education to me is so important, that I want women to start asking the questions and just start getting the tests. The tests are not that expensive at all. So to get the blood work and to get the ultrasound, just to have that information. And maybe you don't want to take the step to freeze your eggs yet, and that's okay. But information is power. Information, gives you knowledge. So at least just take that step to gain the knowledge, like to know where your fertility health is, and then go from there. Because you may be fine. Your numbers may be great, and maybe you don't need to freeze your eggs. But maybe you want to, because you're not planning on having children, and you don't know if you want children, or you want to wait another 5 years or so to focus on yourself, or to focus on something that's important to you. Just to have that option. So that's one thing that would be my advice. If you're in your late 20s, early 30s, and you're thinking that you may want kids in the future, at least get the testing done.
Excellent advice. Excellent. Not a surprise, considering she's extraordinary at everything she does, and I am so jealous yet again. Before I screw this up and say this inappropriately, I found 2 different versions of your name, which I'm sure you know. So some people say Catherine, which is Catherine without the E, and some people say Katie without the E. So which is it, so I don't get it wrong?
So I go by Katie. Catherine, okay. I usually go by, like with work, but Katie's right. What I go by. So call me Katie. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. So in case all of you folks missed it in the beginning, I don't think I introduced her properly, but it's Katie, and please pronounce your last name, because again, that's a tricky one too.
Yep, Deutschle. So if you think of Germany's Deutschland, Deutschle's my last name. That's how you say it. Got it.
Okay, yes. Got it. So the lovely Kati Deutschle. And just so you know, her name is spelled Deutschle, so you've got that right. Her interview will be archived within 2 hours, just so you know. I will send you a copy off of Blog Talk Radio as well as off of my YouTube channel. You'll get both copies within about 2 hours, and that's archived for the rest of the universe to listen to forever. And I'm going to read off all the ways to find you. Please let me know if I forgot anything. The website for her company it's called, again, EmBorrow, which is E-M and then the word borrow, www.emborrow.com, and the same name for Instagram as well as Facebook. And she also has a profile on LinkedIn for the business as well as herself, and also a Facebook page, a personal Facebook page for herself as well. Obviously, I mentioned Fox 32 Chicago and WGN. Any other place where people can find you?
That's it. Even if they just Google EmBorrow or Google me, there's going to be it'll link you to the Instagram, to the Facebook. So there's definitely many ways to reach out to us. By email as well. You can reach me at Catherine, it's Katrin, .Deutschle, DEUTSCHLE @emborrow.com, and I'll get your emails as well.
And we don't want to forget to mention the obvious. If somebody needs a lawyer, do they contact you directly through that email or through your firm, or what is the easiest way to go here? We don't want to forget that.
They can email me. However, they can send the email to EmBorrow. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest to send me a message on LinkedIn.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I don't want to forget to mention the obvious. We usually always end the show with the only part of my show that is not written is the very last part of it. It's never scripted because these are just my own personal thoughts. So I just want to say a quick thing or two before I let you go. I do not want to forget to mention Daphne Ortiz with Statement PR. Without Daphne's help and assistance and coordination of this interview, lovely Katie wouldn't be here today. So Daphne, from me to you, not only at the height of professionalism, but she's just clearly just absolutely a lovely gal. So from me to you, Daphne, thank you so much. She was a wonderful client. Anybody who's looking for PR representation, www.statement-pr.com. Go ahead and look up Daphne Ortiz there. So to you, young lady Kathy, this is Katie. This is what I want to say to you. I've been a mother for a very long time. I've had a number of children, in fact, some of which are giving me gray hair as we speak because they're now teenagers, 2 grown, 2 at home. So this is what I will pass on to you. One of the most extraordinary things about mothers is that you get to hear the heartbeat of your child before anyone else. You get to feel them move.
Mm-hmm.
You get to feel them grow. And most importantly, in your case, that beautiful child, that little boy, will get to come out someday and know that he has a very intelligent, very inspirational, and extremely dedicated and driven young lady for a mother. I commend you on having the persistence and the patience and the pure joy and heart to withstand all of the things that you've done. My heart sends you very heartfelt sorrow and sentiments and condolences on the loss of a miscarriage, because I know what that's like. I'm very excited for you. In fact, I have a candle lit right now for you, and praying that the next 3 months will go by very quickly and that you will have a very safe and very happy and very healthy family very soon. Hopefully you will come back and visit me again. I hope you enjoyed your time with me here, and we just wish you so well and the very best of luck in the future.
Cindy, you're going to make me cry. Thank you so much.
Oh, God, why is everybody crying on my show?
Pleasure.
I swear to you, everybody who comes on this show, well, you're pregnant. You cry all the time, I'm sure, but you have a great husband and air conditioning, so you're good. I'm sweating in my 700 miles away. But, no, I get it. I can't thank you enough for being I appreciate your patience, because I know we've had to reschedule once. I thank you so much. Anytime you want to come back on the show, you have something new happening with the company, you want to update us on the baby, feel free to knock on my door anytime you want. And like I said, I'll be around later. I'll send you off the copies so that you can go ahead, repost, etc. But, yeah, don't be a stranger. I'd be more than happy to talk to you again.
Thank you, Cindy. I had a wonderful time speaking with you. I would love to have the opportunity to speak with you again.
Oh, great. Well, good luck to you, definitely. And if you need anything, I got baby clothes, too, so feel free to knock on the door.
Okay.
And I'll be checking on you in the next couple of months. You have a good day, dear.
Thank you so much. You too. Thanks, Cindy. Okay,
sure.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Deutschle, see, I got that right. Spelling again, Deutschle. And again, the website, www.emborrow.com. Same title for Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, which is EmBorrow. Kati herself also has a personal Facebook, and the company itself is listed as their LinkedIn profile. And, of course, again, go over to Fox 32 Chicago and WGN to check out previous interviews. The name of her firm also is Litchfield Cavo LLP. And as she mentioned, her email to get a hold of her directly. And, again, if anybody has PR needs, Daphne Ortiz of Statement PR, www.statement-pr.com. I have to tell you that interview is probably one of the few highlights I have of the day. To those that follow me on social media, you know I'm having a day to say the least. So it's encouraging and it's exciting to hear a new mother about to become a mom. So, again, congratulations, Kati. Thank you so much to my listening audience for waiting, because, of course, I know I was a little bit late today. Thanks to all of my dear friends today who are listening to me gripe. Thanks to my best friend and my partner for letting me holler on text message, because I feel like I'm crabby and bitchy and miserable right now, which I am. So I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. Go out and enjoy the 80-degree sunshine. Again, tomorrow I'll be on air, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time. Mark Cavella will be joining us on the show. And please make sure to tune in tomorrow. You guys take care.